Hey everybody, I'm Julian with DevExpress and welcome to today's webinar, CodeRush for Roslyn, Supercharge Your Productivity, presented by Technical Evangelist Paul Usher and myself. Now, this is a little untoward, but unfortunately we're having extreme difficulties with GoToMeeting at the moment. You may have noticed I'm not Amanda, our usual announcer. That's because she can't get on. And we're supposed to have a surprise guest star at the end of this particular webinar, Mark Miller, and he can't get on. And so we're going to forge forwards with this, Paul and I, and see how far we get. We may have to redo the webinar. We'll see. The session is being recorded though, and will be available on our DevExpress YouTube channel later on today. We'll also do a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. Just type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel at any time throughout the broadcast. We may or may not be able to answer some questions during the presentation as well. So without further ado, let's welcome Paul to the webinar. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Julian, and good morning. Normally it's a thank you, Amanda, but obviously today is going to be different, just to try us. Good morning, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CodeRush for Roslyn presentation. Ironically, I've actually been waiting since April 2014 to present this session. That's when we first announced that we'd be releasing a Roslyn-based version of CodeRush. Now, I was going to say, let's see if Mr. Bucknall's with us, but of course we know he is. We've heard his dulcet tones already. And Julian, you don't spend that much time in Visual Studio these days, but I'm hoping by the end of it you'll be re-inspired.
Well, the problem is I don't actually write very much C# code anymore. I tend to write more client-side stuff, so JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So CodeRush for me, I've used it obviously in the past, CodeRush Classic as we're now calling it, used it in the past, and so I'm anxious to see what we have for Roslyn and how this is going to be different and how it's going to make your lives that much faster and better.
That it will. In fact, I was going to say I don't write that much code in C# anymore because CodeRush for Roslyn does it for me.
Very good.
Quick history of CodeRush. It actually started as a Delphi add-on back way in 1998 and was the brainchild of Mr. Miller himself. And in 2003, Mark and the team brought it to Visual Studio for the very first time. And around about that time, it really set things on fire in Visual Studio. You had got a lot of exposure. It was featured on .NET Rocks. You'd got people like Scott Hanselman actually making blog posts and tweeting about it. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Scott on the whole UI stuff. Yeah, sorry to sound like such a pimp for these guys. Now, what's interesting here is the mention of the UI stuff is hotter than Whitby. And for those that have been using Visual Studio for that long, Whitby was the code name of a very nice version. In fact, Julian, I believe you were on that team.
Indeed, I was. I joined Microsoft for a small period of time back in 2003, and I joined the C# team in DevDiv, and we were producing Whitby, which was going to be Visual Studio 2004, but unfortunately one of the teams that formed part of Visual Studio weren't ready, and so it was delayed a complete year. Whitby, yeah, I did a bit for C#. I did a bit for the refactoring side of things. In fact, if you go to Visual Studio 2015 now and drop down the refactoring menu inside Visual Studio 2015, I was responsible for the key shortcuts.
Your legacy lives on.
I know. It's still there 12 years later.
Now, back in 2014, I actually wrote a blog post about this. We announced that we were going to be writing CodeRush for Roslyn. And at the time, it was a little bit controversial as well. Some competitive products decided they weren't going to touch the Roslyn compiler. And of course, just a short 18 months later, or however months that is, we are here ready for the final release. It's been in preview for a while. Now, we've had a long history of users, and I think a lot of people, I've certainly been using it for over a decade, long before I started with the company, and I love code templates more than anything, I've got to say. But this was a comment posted on the Visual Studio extensions page recently from a user that's been through the classic days and certainly moved on to Roslyn. So it's one of those things, once you start using it and you can see the benefits, there's a big difference in productivity. So why would people choose CodeRush? I'm going to give you one quick example, and that is to do with keystrokes and how much time you can actually save by using CodeRush. Let's take this quick example here of a public enum of vowels. Now technically there are 11 pieces of information here, so VOWELS and then the vowels themselves. If I was to hand code this inside C#, I'm looking at about 38 keystrokes. Yes, I could use code snippets and that would take it down to about 27, 28. But using CodeRush, I could actually minimize that down to 8 keystrokes plus the actual data, so about 19, which is 50% efficiency over full coding. And I'm just going to show you that as a quick example as we get into here. I've got a basic console application, and I'm going to go E for enum. I'm going to type VOWELS, enter AEIOU, and I'm done. I didn't have to mess around with the shift key to get my curly braces, the comma key. I didn't have to spell enum out, etc. So there is a real benefit at that point of working with CodeRush and code templates. Now code templates is only 1/7 of what the feature set that we're going to be showing. But for example, if I want to do a console write line, I'm going to do CW. Boom, it gets extended out. At this point, I'm going to write a method called hello and pass in a string called Paul. Obviously, the method doesn't exist, so I can invoke the refactor menu. I'm going to declare the method. I get to position where I want it. And now I'm going to say I want to return. Interestingly, write line takes 18 overloads, so the first one in the list is a bool. I'm just going to change that to a string. And then I want to return this with a R, which is going to give me a string empty. And then I'm going to do some interpolation and say hello and then str. At that point, you can start to see the code expansion, the code templates will give me some benefits. Hopefully you can see on screen there is a little blue marker sitting next to where I actually entered that new method. If I use my jump marker key, in my case escape, I'm going to jump straight back to where I left off and I can continue coding. I'm going to do console read key, so CRK space, and I've now got my program ready to run. I'm going to show you how to customize some of these templates as well as some other features. But as far as reasons why you should use CodeRush, think about it in terms of, or reasons to use the templates, the amount of typing that you can save on. What are the benefits for that? Well, if you can improve your coding time and you're actually typing less, it's going to create less work for your fingers, which over time is definitely going to add up. You've got less opportunity to create mistakes, and therefore you're going to spend less time fixing those mistakes. And it's been proven that if you write less code, it's going to shorten that feedback loop between the idea and the realization, which in turn can lead to a higher quality design. The example I gave you before, if I was doing it by hand, not including the data, 27 keystrokes by hand, 17 using snippets, and with CodeRush only 8. Next reason would be, well, why did we decide to go to Roslyn? Before I answer that question, Julian, how about you just share and say explain what Roslyn actually is.
So Roslyn is a C# compiler written in C#. In fact, it's a VB compiler as well. And the kind of interesting thing about that is, how do you start it off if it's written in C# and it's, never mind. So Roslyn is a C# compiler written in C#, and the interesting thing is that once you've done that, you can then use it in a lot of different places where you've never been able to use the C# compiler before, because the C# compiler originally was written in C++. And that includes things like ASP.NET Core, so suddenly ASP.NET Core works on, for example, Linux, and the Roslyn Roslyn is the compiler behind ASP.NET Core. And so suddenly, as Microsoft have found, you can start having your .NET code, your C# code, your VB code running on environments which are not Windows. And that's a very important point. Now, Roslyn for us in this particular webinar is talking about Roslyn within Visual Studio. Visual Studio has replaced all of its language services with Roslyn so that in Visual Studio 2015, everything gets compiled with Roslyn, and they've done a whole bunch of work with regard to being able to compile partial code and so on and so forth. And what we're doing with CodeRush for Roslyn is to tap into that. No longer do we have to write our own C# compiler, as in CodeRush Classic, and have our own abstract syntax trees and so on and so forth. Nope. We just basically register with the language service and use Visual Studios directly. So there is a massive reduction in memory consumption. We're not building our own syntax tree for the code in your editor or in your project or in your solution. We're just using the one that Visual Studio is already providing. Faster performance. We don't have to compile it. We just latch into the same structures that Visual Studio provides. And that is very, very impressive performance-wise and consumption-wise, and very important.
So as you mentioned there, Julian, we've got, first of all, a massive reduction in memory consumption. Anything that gets added into Visual Studio is going to have an impact on Visual Studio. And we know from the feedback, large projects tend to get sluggish, and that was a critical factor for writing productivity tools. You've got to find that balance. Do we use the tool that's going to save us time writing code, but then become annoying because Visual Studio stops responding? With Roslyn support, that is no longer the issue. The performance benefits of that, being able to open projects in fractions of seconds instead of waiting. And of course, the better language support. As soon as something is added to the supported languages in Roslyn, it is automatically available inside CodeRush. I've got a couple of slides here to show you some example projects or some projects we did testing on. You can see that even in the worst case scenario, opening the Roslyn source itself, which boosted Visual Studio up to nearly 400 meg, the footprint of CodeRush was really quite small. Even more impressive is the opening time with CodeRush installed, and you can see against our competitors' products there. CodeRush would open the Roslyn source project in under 2 seconds, so about 1.5 seconds. So there's certainly compelling reasons as to why you'd want to use CodeRush for Roslyn. I mentioned before there are 7 key features that we wanted to deliver. We've got the test runner, which has been heralded as one of the fastest test runners on the market. We've got the navigation tools, code analysis, some powerful refactorings, the code templates and Debug Visualizer are probably my favorite tools, and we've introduced a Decompiler, which has got some interesting use cases as well. If we wanted to look at that by language, you can see that for the current supported Roslyn languages, C# and VB, all the features are available all the way through. There's limited or restricted features for XAML, and also others being HTML, JavaScript, CSS, TypeScript. I do know from the team that they're working tirelessly, even if it's not introduced yet into Roslyn, that we're going to be adding extra support for JavaScript, TypeScript, etc. coming later on this year. So as with all our products, the guys just keep investing and investing to deliver the best. Now there are some prerequisites for running CodeRush for Roslyn. It does require Visual Studio 2015 or above. The above being that Microsoft are going to be releasing Visual Studio 15, go figure, at some point in the future, near future. Now you can run it on Community, Professional or Enterprise. There is no support for the Express edition, and this is not a restriction that we've put on there. Microsoft simply don't allow third-party extensions to be run in Express. And if you're running an earlier version of Visual Studio, my first question is why? But you can still run CodeRush Classic, and that will continue to be available as one of our products as well. What we're going to do now is take you through the installation, have a look at the new setup wizard, how you can import existing Classic settings if you're using it, and then step through some of the features of CodeRush for Roslyn. Now, I'm actually getting lots of pings on Twitter and Skype of people that can't join, so if you are on the call, congratulations, you actually are one of the lucky ones.
Yep, indeed. GoToWebinar is being very, very difficult here in the States. Luckily, I managed to get in before it all went south, but I certainly can't re-register and try and join. So all of you who are here are very lucky indeed.
The fortunate ones.
The fortunate ones.
To install CodeRush for Roslyn, simply hit the Tools menu inside Visual Studio and come down to Extensions and Updates. You'll find the Online option and you can simply search for CodeRush. Once you've found it in the list, select it and install it, and you'll be prompted to restart Visual Studio. When you do that, you're going to find the CodeRush menu appears like so. And from in here, if it's the first time, the Setup Wizard will actually pop up. Now I'm going to invoke the Setup Wizard, and it's going to allow me to step through some of those initial setups. Now we understood from feedback from our users that sometimes CodeRush could be seen to be in your face. And so some of the settings, we had discrete modes, we had other modes, people had to go and find them. The guys have brought all this into a really nice, easy setup wizard. It's going to step you through the main basics to get you up and running with CodeRush. It's also going to let me show you some of the key benefits or key features of the product as well. The first one we can see is structural highlighting. And this is where CodeRush will draw low contrast lines between different code blocks, braces. If you've got if statements, you'll see it drill down, and you can very easily follow the flow of your application or your actual code. You'll see just from these two windows here, we've got the code snippet without the structural highlighting and structural highlighting. We can also see that using this toolbar, we can turn structural highlighting on and off. And inside options, there's some nice features as well. You can turn the lines onto diagonal, for example, which help easily identify if you've got missing braces or your code execution is not following a path that you expect. You'll also see these little learn more tags. If you invoke that, you'll get sent to either the documentation, or in some cases, we've got some YouTube videos showing the features. Now, anybody who's coding on a full-size keyboard with a numeric keypad will often find that they're not using that numeric keypad very much when writing code. So the guys thought it would be really cool if we utilize some of those keys to give us more productivity. And in fact, we can see here, we're using the minus key to decrease selected text, the plus key to increase selected text, jump to symbol, jump to menu, and code refactor. What I'm going to do is just jump across to an existing project and show you how some of that will work. If I come down to, say, this block of code here, and I press the plus key on my keyboard, you can see straight away it's highlighted just that particular value. I can invoke the CodeRush key straight away by pressing the 0 key, and it's going to show me the things that I can do with just the highlighted text. Now if I press plus again and keep pressing plus, you can see how it's actually expanding to the code outside the block. This is a lot easier than messing around with the shift arrow keys, control end, home, etc., or even having to take my hand off the keyboard onto the mouse to actually do something. If I've accidentally selected too much text, I can use the minus key to decrease the amount of text selected. What's really nice, if I bring back that code block and then hit, for example, T, my code's going to be encased inside a try-catch event as well. So it makes it very nice to work with. I invoke the CodeRush key on that, and we can see that because I've got a large block, it's identified. These are the things you can actually do with it, which is really handy. So certainly a nice feature to have turned on. We've got jump to symbol and jump to menu. Let's just go back to that instance of Visual Studio. If I invoke that, we're going to see the jump to menu. Inside the navigation features of CodeRush, there are so many little things that's been designed to keep you focused on your code and to reduce the cognitive load. Mr. Miller uses that term so many times, and it's really interesting when you discuss that with him, but how when we look at something, we don't have to think as much to get something done. Therefore, we're not wasting the brain cells and creative flow in finding that information. And you'll find that a lot through the whole of CodeRush. If I type jump to symbol, as I start typing, you can see that it's going to start highlighting things that match. The red make it easy for me to see in those example what's going on. And control, I've got so many options. It's not in my face unless I want it to be, and I can drill down and get to more things. And that's one of the cool things with IntelliRush, as we'll see when we go on. The next option in the wizard is the spell check. As well as providing the ability to check your spelling inside comments and strings, we've also got the ability of checking the API level member identifiers. And what I mean by that is anything that we provide public interface or a public option to, we can make sure it's spelled correctly. And we're going to demo that in an example in a little while, but it's nice to know that you're not going to end up exposing in your API some code that is misspelt. Again, these sort of features can be turned on and off quickly as you're working through with CodeRush. The tab to next reference is very powerful. If you're working with properties or fields at a class level and you want to, instead of having to right click and say find all references, wait for that dialog to come up and then try and step through, simply hit the tab key, and this will jump you between every place that particular field has been used. Tab will take you forward, Shift tab will take you back. It's quite a nice feature to just have turned on, and you'll find that you would use it. You can see how when it is active, we're using a highlighting, again, just to draw your attention to where that property is or where that field is inside your code block. Next is the smart semicolon. Obviously, if you're a C# developer, it's important. VB guys, don't even worry about semicolons. But you can be anywhere inside your code block, particularly inside parentheses. Just hit the semicolon and CodeRush will detect and say, well, hang on, no, this actually needs to be outside the parentheses, and will save you a lot of time, again, fiddling around, pressing the end key, going to the end of the line, control right arrow, all those things. So certainly, as the tip here says, we highly recommend turning smart semicolon on. And then we've got the options for working with code expansion. Now, I'm a big fan of code templates, so I definitely wouldn't use the disable code expansion. Depending on where you are in that process, you can either use the tab key to expand it, or you can use the space bar. I find that as I'm working through, space makes me a lot more efficient, and it's just a quick way of setting which key you want to be active. And then we have the all-important markers. I did show this briefly in that vowel example, but as you navigate through with the F12 key, CodeRush will drop a marker to where you actually left that method into the tree path. As you go through, you can actually, my preference is escape, but you can set up the options here, obviously, is to press escape to return me as I'm going through. So I could navigate through complicated paths as I'm using F12 to step into, and then just hit escape to keep taking me back to the entry point of each of those code blocks. There are some other marker functions inside CodeRush. You can use some shortcut keys, Alt-Shift-1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. They will place permanent markers, a little bit like bookmarks inside Visual Studio, that will persist with your project, and so they can be helpful as well. And then we have the IntelliRush feature. You've got to consider this is more like IntelliSense on steroids. In fact, I'm going to jump in again to the test project and just show you. Say I was working with the system namespace. This is a standard IntelliSense style pop-up, and I go tab, and I get this huge list of everything that's sitting underneath system. Now, if I was to press the control button for options, I can actually say, okay, you know what? I only want namespaces. I'm looking for something. Hit N, and boom, the IntelliSense window, the IntelliRush window, is then limited to just the namespaces. I can say, well, IO is what I want, tab, I'm going to hit control, and this time I'm only interested in enumerators inside that particular namespace. So it makes it very easy to find things, again reducing that cognitive load when you're working through many code paths. And there's some other big examples there for hierarchies. You can go up classes, into classes, very, very powerful for discoverability inside your code base. So definitely enable IntelliRush. For the basic setup wizard, that's it, everything's enabled. Now, if you want to invoke that wizard again, after you've closed it, it's the CodeRush setup wizard. And if you want to actually go into the options, and I certainly recommend spending some time inside the options panel, you can go through and get even more granular control over each aspect of CodeRush as far as the analysis, the templates, how to set things up, whether you want member icons painted, colors. Colors is a cool one. If you're using the color option, CodeRush will actually paint the color of the element for you on screen. Here's the structural highlighting. There's the diagonal lines option I mentioned. So it's certainly worthwhile spending a few minutes inside there. So we'll exit out of the options. If you're an existing CodeRush Classic user, or what we're now calling CodeRush Classic, and you want to bring your standard settings or all the code templates or things you've already worked on, you can hit the CodeRush menu, come down to Support, and then choose Import and Export Settings. This gives you a really nice way, if we click Next, of importing those classic settings. You can browse, pick up your folder. It will also make a backup of your existing settings before it overwrites them, which is always important if you accidentally find that you had made important changes you wanted to keep. So that covers the installation, the setup wizard, and the importing of existing. Now what we'll do is start looking at some of the key features inside CodeRush for Roslyn. I did mention earlier that the test runner is one of the, it's heralded as one of the fastest test runners for Visual Studio. And certainly if you're using unit tests or you understand the importance of unit tests, it's going to be a big benefit. It provides an ability to see all the tests in the solution, to run and debug any tests, analyze results, analyze the execution output, and analyze the code coverage. It actually has support for NUnit, XUnit, MSpec, and MSTest, and you can actually set up different frameworks inside the configuration tool. So I'm going to go to CodeRush, I'm going to come down to Test and invoke the test runner, and you'll see from this dialog, if I wanted to hit the configuration icon, that's going to take me straight in there with the test runner and code coverage options to make it easy. It's a simple project that I've got here, just extends the string extension or extends the string function. We can see from the icons we've got the ability of running individual tests, looking at code coverage. I can filter down based on namespace or sort on project, etc., and show what I want to be included. On the right hand side I've got some output windows, and at the moment all the tests are sitting not yet run since I restarted Visual Studio. I'm just going to close that window for a second and have a look at the program itself. It's a simple console application. What we have here is the extension method is primary color. I'm going to drill down into there and have a look at it. We can see I've extended the string method. We've got a simple array of primary colors. Does a check, returns a true or false. Because I drilled down into that, I can use that navigation option of going back to my marker, and it will take me back into that piece of code. If I was to run this application, it's saying, is black a primary color? We're going to get a console window up saying false, it's not a primary color. No problem. Now, obviously the benefit of unit tests, another developer comes along and writes something that's going to break your code. So after many arguments, the developer decided he believed that black was actually a primary color. So adds that in. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you the test runner without any code. So invoke the test runner window. I'm going to choose to run all the tests with code coverage to show you that option as well. We can see that all the tests passed. I've got the duration of the test shown on there. And if I drill in to my actual method, we can see that the string extension is primary color, is all green, there's no gray showing there, and we've got 100% code coverage. So at the moment, everything is running as we'd expect. So the developer comes along and decides that yes, he wants black in there, adds black, and does what all good developers will do, run the test. First thing we're going to look at here is the fact that the test fails. We've got a test to say that black is not a primary color, and we get the output of the test in the window. Just as important, as we scroll into or drill down into our extension method here, we can see that we no longer have 100% code coverage. And in fact, the return false statement never gets executed. So straight away, I can say, well, I should be getting 100% code coverage. So it makes a lot of sense to have those sorts of things in place. At the same time, if I was diligent and wanted to add another method to this particular extension, let's see, we might decide, I'm going to use some CodeRush features here. So actually I want a bool. So using CodeRush, if I want to create a new method that returns a bool, I can do MB, and that's going to return because I'm in the static class, a static bool. I'm going to call that is Australian state. And what I'm going to do is return a list of, or decide whether the string value is a state in Australia. I was going to use America, but I didn't want to create an array of 50 states. We'll use the same convention as we did above. And at this point, I've got some CodeRush templates set up, if I spell it correctly, that says Austates, and there's my array of the state names. I'm going to use CodeRush to say for each, and my collection is going to be states. My item is going to be state. And at this point, each time I press enter, the templates are set up to take me to the next place, so I can just keep typing the code. I've got a if statement, so I'm going to use if b, and that gives me a drop marker in place. I know that I'm going to be checking in string. In string. See, CodeRush doesn't help if you can't spell. And here I'm going to use seq. Because I use equals a lot, and the comparison is the same as I've used above, the culture, ignore case, it's going to automatically expand that block out. So all I have to remember is my string equalize, so seq, and it's going to allow me to work a lot quicker. Now that particular code block is not one that comes with CodeRush, but one I built. I'm going to show you exactly how I did that in just a second. Because I've got a drop marker in place, I can hit escape, it's going to take me to there, and I can say RT for return true, come down outside my block and say RF for false, and that's now done. Of course, if I were to run my tests, I'm expecting to see really bad coverage because I've now got this extra method. And obviously there is no test associated with it. So I've got 0 coverage, which is bad on that test, and 100% coverage on my previous test. So it's a nice tool to work with your unit testing. Now that particular template that I set up, I just want to make a call out to that. I set this one up and with a couple of parameters here. We've got field, we've got the dot equals, and you can see I can place the caret, which I can use these options inside the template editor to say this is where I want the caret to be when the actual code expands. But what I wanted to show you here is this second option. This is actually saying, hey, I want a nested template here. I want to call an existing template, which is SCCI, which is actually inside the text templates, and it's actually for string comparison, and you can see that it's SCCI. So it just gives you an idea how powerful you could nest these templates. You can interact with a clipboard, you can have it language specific, there is so much power. And I think there's a couple of videos that Mark and I have done previously for doing database programming that allowed us to show just how quickly you can generate code on the fly with templates. I'm not sure if Mark's been able to join yet, but we'll move on with a couple. Oh, excellent. We're going to move on with a couple of other minor demos before I was panicking if I had to find something else to show shortly, but that's good. GoToWebinar is allowing people in. So next what I want to show you is a couple of refactorings. Now, obviously everybody wants to write really nice code. Let's find a thing here. If I was to create a new method, I don't know, let's say just a void, and I could say hello, and this is going to have a string. So I'm going to go VS, and I'm going to say parameter A space VS parameter B. You can see straight away I'm saving time by just being able to concentrate on what parameters I want. I'm not having to press comma, I'm not having to type string or do those things. CodeRush is a very phonetic language as well. If I wanted another parameter that was a Boolean, I'm going to type VB. And I'm going to say C, and now I want a date. Well, let's see what happens if I do VD. It's actually going to give me a double. And if I actually wanted a date, because it works phonetically in that sense, I can just do VD8, and I'm going to get a date field. All the time saving that functionality or allow me to focus on the code I want to write. Just up here I'm going to create a new method. I'm going to go test hello, and I want to call hello, and I've got two hellos obviously. Let's change this just for the fun of it. Hello A. Now because I don't want to have to create all those parameters, I'm just going to use A and B, and we're going to say, okay, we're passing in A and we're passing in B. Nice and straightforward. That should be hello A. I might be working on this particular method and go, you know what? For whatever reason, I want to reorder those parameters now. I can simply hit the CodeRush key and I want to say reorder parameters. You'll see straight away that I've got this visual to tell me, hey, the options right now is A can move to the right. As I do that, A can then move to the left. And if I've got multiple parameters in there, I can move it along, move it back. Once I'm happy with that option, I commit the change by just hitting enter, and you'll see what's really cool is my original parameters have been honored. So anywhere in the code that those parameters are being called, they're going to be reordered as well. So I'm not going to end up with bad code because the parameters are passed through at the wrong point, which I think is really, really cool. And there are so many refactorings built into CodeRush to protect you in those sorts of ways. If I've got, you can see here, things like removed unused parameters. I'm not using A or B in my code. The refactor is going to say, hey, you can clean this up, you can get rid of them. If I wanted to add a parameter, another cool one, invoke, I want to go add parameter. It's then just going to drop me at the beginning of the parameter list and ask me the object type, string, and it's C. Oops, I turned insert on. One really nice thing with CodeRush is the fact that we can do what we call deep declaration or deep declare. Again, come back to the thought of you're working through some code and you're in the zone. You just want to focus on writing the code. I'm going to use an example that Mark shared with us because I think it's really cool. And I want to create a new airplane, although one has to spell it correctly. Now at this point, what I can do is invoke the CodeRush key, and it's going to say declare local. So again, I didn't have to go through the whole var airplane, And this airplane is going to have a particular model number. So I'm just going to say airplane.model equals Piper. And then airplane, let's see, we're going to do a pre-check. So before we can do anything, we need to do pre-checks, and airplane dot boarding, and then see, CodeRush can't help my stupidity. Airplane dot takeoff, and of course what goes up must come down, so airplane dot land. Now that's all nice. I've got the code that I'm writing, so I'm going through doing all these things. I could introduce, I've already done a property, I've done some methods, I could do items inside that. But if I just invoke the CodeRush key now, what's really, really cool is the fact that the system said, hey, here's an object that doesn't yet exist. Not only does it not yet exist, you've actually said that it should exist with these particular things. I'm just going to hit enter there, and straight away the system or CodeRush has gone away, created my airplane class. It set up my my method or my property called model, which it's going to pass through that string, and of course I've got all these methods that I've been calling ready for me to work on. Now the astute among you would have noticed straight away that I've got a purple, pink, cerise, I don't know.
Red.
Squiggly,
cerise?
squiggly line under pre-checks. And of course, what that's highlighting is the fact that there's a spelling mistake. So once I come over here, it's going to give me the option to say, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to make it rechecks, or do you actually want to make it pre-checks? And from a programmer's point of view, not having to think too hard about, did I spell it right? Do I have to go to the dictionary? Am I getting in trouble from my boss? I can simply say, rename it. And of course, what's really, really cool there is the fact that back inside our program, it's also updated all the necessary code, which is really, really cool. Last thing I want to show before we start asking Mr. Miller some questions is the Debug Visualizer. Now, between the templates inside CodeRush and the Debug Visualizer, they've got to be the two biggest time-saving features, I think, of the product for me personally. I've been using CodeRush for a long time, and the Visualizer's been around for a little while now, but it is just amazing. So here's a console application we're just going to run. It has some breakpoints in it. Now, as I step through, one of the breakpoints has disappeared, but that's okay. As I step through the code here, we can see straight away I don't have to put my mouse over the actual variables to get the value from them. They're showing on screen. The rest of the code's moved out of the way. You can see the gap between line 237 and line 238, so it's not overwriting things. I'm not struggling to find out what's going on above or below. But as I step through, I won't make the mistake of F11, I'll F10 through this, I get down to the switch statement. And what's really nice here, straight away you're going to see that the contrast on the unnecessary code, so the code that's not going to be reached, is diminished. It's out of my face, and instead all I need to focus on is the fact of where this switch statement is going to take me. In this case it's going to be summer, and that's highlighted. So as I step through, I know straight away where it's going to go. If I step through again, I come down to this particular example. So we're working on a rental car. You can see the values coming through. Again, I'm just going to start F10ing through here. And we get to this condition. Now at the top level, we're being shown quite clearly that the condition isn't going to be met. So the contrast on the code block on line 416 to 417 has been reduced because, hey, I don't need to focus on that right now. And instead we're shown that it's going to fall through to the exception. But at what point is that the case? We're told that the result of that condition is false, but there's three actual parts to it. And what's really, really neat here is the ability to drill down with the Debug Visualizer. I'm just going to use Alt down arrow, and some amazing magic happens. On the right-hand side, we can see all the different paths available in the code tree. It shows at this top level, we've got three possible paths, and underneath those paths, there are more paths. To me, what's outstanding is the fact that straight away, I don't have to use my mouse, I don't have to do anything. I can see that it's the middle condition that is going to return false. The outer two return true. So when you're stepping through code and trying to work out what's going on, it's outstanding. You just I'm lost for words in the sense that you have so much power that's just provided for you. I can step through those code paths with the down arrow. You can see here as I move, I'm now highlighting this one. I can go down the path. Is it because the customer accident count is less than the min accident count? So I've got both values. The result of that is false, but the values underneath that is 5 is not 3 is not greater than 5. So all the way, and this can go into a very complex scenario where you can have many, many code paths, and you can step through them seeing all those values without having to open the watch window, the immediate window, and start poking around, or the locals window. So the Debug Visualizer, and I'm barely scratching the surface of it there, is an amazing piece of code. Now, gentlemen, how are we doing for questions and other things?
Well done, Paul. Well, I'm glad to say we've got our special guest star with us.
We do?
And yeah, we do. So,
this man?
Indeed.
I'm here. I was just going through answering some of the questions that I'm seeing here. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Paul and Julian. Good job, Paul. It was great to watch. Sorry, I came in so late and I wasn't able to see the beginning. Yeah, I guess there's a couple things I want to talk about. There's a major announcement we wanted to get out, let everybody know, and that is that the price for CodeRush for Roslyn Community Support Edition, the edition where DevExpress doesn't help you if you have a question, but you can get support from the community. The price on that product is going to be $49. So that is set to make it very, very easy to purchase, very easy to get into it. If you are an existing customer and you already have CodeRush, the price of CodeRush for Roslyn, if you already have an active subscription, is $0. So you'll get CodeRush for Roslyn included with CodeRush Classic if you already have that, and that subscription is still active. And you'll get updates for as long as that subscription remains active. Let's see, what else? If you want CodeRush for Roslyn with full DevExpress support, then the price of that is going to be $249, and that gives you a year of updates and a year of support from our tech support staff. So the pricing, that was one of the announcements that I wanted to get out. The other thing that's significant about what we're significantly different about what we're doing is our planned release schedule. And if you've been following the updates that we've been doing, we've been releasing about every 45 days, and our intention is to continue that. So even though we're calling 16.1 the final release of CodeRush for Roslyn, it's our first official final release of the product, we intend to get you new major updates every 45 days. So the team will continue the 45-day sprint cycle. You'll be hearing from us, and we'll be talking to you every 45 days, telling you what's new, telling you what's faster, telling you what's been fixed, that sort of thing. So our intention is to have frequent updates out there, and hopefully that will encourage you to give us good feedback so we can quickly respond and show you how important we think you are and what you have to say is. So, so those are the two major important things, and I think with that, I think I should probably open up to questions. So
to recap that, Mark, we're saying $49 for the community version and a release cycle of 45 days.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's right, and that'll give you 1 year's worth of free updates, and then to get another year's worth of updates after that, it's another $49 if you want to continue that process. Okay, and I've also heard, by the way, I've also heard phrases like lock in that $49 price. Apparently, there may be a time when we change that, and if you have it now, you're locked in. I don't have any idea. Nobody said when that's going to happen. I don't anticipate it anytime soon in this year, but who knows? So the lock-in may be an incentive there for you to get that price if you want to do that. So
do we have a release date, Mark?
Yes, we do have a release date, and the release date is sometime between now and the 10th of August. So we are in the process of testing the build right now, and I anticipate that we will you'll see it within probably about 48 hours. So,
so Thursday.
Sure.
Friday here in Australia.
Look, I'm telling. It's the same thing as saying, look, if you say the release date, I'm telling you, it's not going to be after the 10th. I've just set out an infinite number of days. You should be happy.
Putting you on the spot. That's what they were like.
Yeah. So quality is obviously important, right? We're running through the tests, all the tests now, and we're not going to release it if there's a problem. And so we're running through that. We do that every 45 days. We go through all the tests and the checks that we have to do before we ship it. So that's what we're doing now.
And of course, we're using the test runner.
I'm sorry?
And of course, we're using the CodeRush test runner. Yeah,
in fact, not only does Team CodeRush use it, but every team at DevExpress uses it to test everything that we produce. So yes, it is very, very fast. We think it's the world's fastest, but we haven't done any recent benchmarks on it. But we think it's still the world's fastest because it has the ability to simultaneously run tests concurrently in two different, if you break your tests into different assemblies, we can simultaneously run those as opposed to doing them sequentially, which is what most test runners do. I wanted to also mention that we've got a cheat sheet. There was a question I saw in here that asked, do we have a cheat sheet for this? And I just put one up on my blog. So that's like devexpress.com/mark, I think. But I'll put a link out here for it for the question with the cheat sheet. And so if you're looking at the questions, you can see the link I'm just putting out there now, and I'll probably also stick it in the chat window as well, so everybody can see the cheat sheet there and get to it easily. Let's see, what other questions do we have?
So one of the questions, sorry, was some of the information you've been showing or explaining, is that up on the website yet? And the short answer is not yet, but will be, I think, this week with the pricing and, of course, the new CodeRush for Roslyn landing page. The documentation online is all up to date for CodeRush for Roslyn, which is really helpful, and it's got some good links in it.
Here's one from Marco who's asking a question I want to know is, will CodeRush be available for JavaScript?
Yes, so good question. Yeah, I should mention this too in terms of the key differences between CodeRush Classic and CodeRush for Roslyn. So in going for CodeRush for Roslyn and making that move, we had some huge experienced some huge gains. Probably one of the most significant ones is that CodeRush loads in about 3 seconds when you start up Visual Studio. So it's about a 2 to 3 second hit on most dev machines. In other words, it's very fast loading. We've also loading projects and solutions also much faster. But however, in making that move, we also had to make a compromise, and that we lost, by switching over to the Roslyn engine, we also lost support temporarily for anything that was not Roslyn. And so that includes JavaScript and HTML, XAML, those areas. And so CodeRush for Roslyn temporarily does not come with out-of-the-box support for JavaScript or HTML. It does have some out-of-the-box support for XAML, and we expect all of that to change in the next 45 days, in the next 90 days, next 135 days. At every update, we expect and anticipate to be adding more features, more functionality to fill in JavaScript and HTML to support those, and to really bolster the support as well in XAML. In CodeRush Classic, we had really some very powerful refactorings, for example, in XAML, and we're just starting to move those over now in CodeRush for Roslyn. So our intention is, yes, to fill those areas up, to become a first-class tool in those areas, but right now we are not. And so the compromise, that was one of the compromises that we made. The other thing we decided to do is we decided that with CodeRush Classic, at the point we made the transition, we were going to switch it over into maintenance mode. And as a result, CodeRush Classic does not support the latest C# language features and the latest VB language features. So VB14 and C#6 we do not support in CodeRush Classic. The benefit in CodeRush for Roslyn is not only do we totally support those, but any time that Visual Studio adds, the Visual Studio team or the C# team adds new features, or the VB team adds new features to the languages, CodeRush will automatically support those. We may not have refactorings that allow you to exploit those yet. Those might be tools that we add later, but being able to understand the language, we will still understand the language and we'll do it immediately. So our ability to follow on the heels of the C# team and the VB team now is much stronger. We're much closer on their heels. So I hope that answered the question. We will support those in the future. We really don't support those now in CodeRush for Roslyn.
What I'd just like to say is on a 45-day release cycle, you're going to get 8 releases a year. So 8 releases with major functionality a year. So it's very different from Classic. It's very different from the rest of our products where we have 2 major releases a year.
That's right. We're also
bear that in mind.
We're also distributing it on the Visual Studio Gallery, which means it will update itself if you opt into that. So it can automatically update. So it's a totally different way of distribution of distributing software that we're doing here. I did see a question that is it included in the full DevExpress subscriptions, and the answer is yes. You should absolutely see it there. It should be available there. And if you have any questions about that, contact client services at devexpress.com if you're not seeing it there and you're expecting it to be there. It's not in every subscription, but it is in the full subscriptions. So anything that includes CodeRush should include CodeRush for Roslyn. Okay. I see questions about, or do we have time for more questions? Because I see some in here. Do I?
Yes, you can have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
about 5 more minutes.
So the question is, I see one question about the third-party API for building our own CodeRush plugins. Robert, that is not out yet. We deemed that a lower priority than the pieces that we worked on. We do want to get back to there. We want to get to a point where creating plugins is incredibly fast and easy. For now, what I'd like you to do is, if you want to send an email out to me, markm@devexpress.com. If you want to start writing plugins now, we can essentially send you a package of sample files on how to do it. But the API is in flux. It's not finished yet. And I'll put my email address in the chat window right here so everybody can, if you're interested in that, you can send me an email. There it is right there. Okay. Does it support VB6? I'm not a VB expert, but if VB6 is not VB, that's before VB.net, I think, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think the answer is not really. It does not really support that.
No.
Well, Julian says absolutely not.
Okay. And the reason for that is, as I explained at the beginning, it requires Visual Studio 2015 anyway, which is not a VB6 supported environment. So
I'm noticing Marcus has a comment about the enum template says it works when you press the enter. The text next element is placed but not selected. I think you have it's a versioning issue. So this may have been fixed in between the last update and the version I have. So try that again in the next update that you get. It may be that it's fixed in an actually I think it is fixed in an update that's out there right now because we put an update out about 10, 12 days ago as well. So it should be fixed.
Yeah, please realize, everyone, that we're working with a release that you do not have. It's a pre-build release, so there's a lot of things, well, not a lot of things, there are several things that Paul showed which do not work in the current version.
I was brave.
You were brave, Paul.
Chris is asking if a refactoring loop like for each link query is planned. We want that in. It is not planned in the next 45 days, but it is something we want. I am copying that to the clipboard, and I'm going to be talking to the devs about that today, just to make sure that we don't lose sight of that, and that is on the priority list. And Christian, I will tweet you and let you know about when we expect that to show up, okay? Or I'll email you one of the two. Probably tweak, since there are probably other people who want to know what the answer to that is too. What else do we have? Help panel, show. Anybody else see any questions? I'm going to read these aloud because as I read them. Okay, actually I see one from Mark Kettlewell. I can read this one and talk about this. Asking about, are we going to have any kind of assistance, visual assistant that shows us what templates and shortcuts are available given the current context? We'll handle those separately in 2 different windows. Shortcuts, I expect that we're going to have a window similar to what we have in CodeRush Classic that shows you essentially your current main bindings. With regards to templates, we are working on integrating templates into IntelliSense, but this is not it's not easy because of what's built into Visual Studio. I think they just opened up something for us to allow us to do this. So that limitation just went away, I think. But the other aspect that makes this very challenging is there are, last time I calculated, about 200,000 template combinations that we ship out of the box, not including the ones that you add. And so to show you those, to show you all those possible ones that are there, we obviously don't want to list all 200,000. And so what we need to do is intelligently and quickly pare down that list. So it's a challenge from a UI perspective. How do we show you just the pieces that are important? It's a challenge from a performance perspective as well. So it is something we're working on. I can't promise that in the next 45 days, but I think it is likely you'll see that in the next 90 days, some sort of integrated assistance with IntelliSense. Question, any plans to move this over to VCL? There are no plans to move it over to VCL at all, to go back over there right now. Will this be available for JavaScript? We answered that.
Yeah. Tell you what, once Roslyn supports Delphi,
there you go. That's our answer. That's our official answer. I edited and stopped talking. That was the rest of what I wanted to say. Okay, well, plugins that were...
Yeah, remember this is for Roslyn, which is part of Visual Studio 2015. So it's not the Visual Studio Code. This is Visual Studio itself. So bear that in mind, please. Will
plugins that were created in CRC work in CRR? The answer is maybe with a compile, probably with changes, a compile and changes. So it's unlikely that you're going to get that, although we have been contacted by a couple of third-party plugin developers who have asked for this kit that I had described before so they could start working on porting their plugins across. So if you're depending on anything, it's possible that's already being ported by the original author. Okay, it looks like I've hit most of the questions there. If I haven't hit your questions, you've got my email address that's out there. That's, I guess, it for me on my side. Anything I've missed, guys? Anything you guys want to say?
No, I think we covered everything we set out to do. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark, and that you were able to get in finally. As you know, I'm a big advocate for CodeRush, so I'm just going to keep pushing this. It is obviously, we've got a lot of webinars this month, so keep your eye on the DevExpress/webinars page. I even think Amanda managed to get in now to just help wrap everything up. So maybe Amanda can...
You guys, I did.
The whole team's here. It's a happy family.
I mean, it just took me 40 minutes.
I can repeat it all for you.
I don't know, Mark. Did you answer? Somebody asked you what's your favorite new feature. Did you already answer that?
I did not answer that. That's an interesting question. I don't have, I think, a favorite new feature, I guess, is the answer. My first answer is IntelliRush, but that's really a port of an older feature. I like that a lot. The templates are getting better, and I use a lot of features. They all kind of work together. I guess the new marker collection. So I don't know if you showed marker collection, and can you show it real quickly, Paul, on your screen? So we made some changes to the UI. I'm not sure Paul has this on here. Drop a marker for a second for us.
Is it drill down or just?
Oh yeah, you can drill. Well, yeah, if you drill down and now move back without collecting it. I just want to show the marker if you can, or just hit Alt Home here to drop a marker.
Oh, okay. Alt Home, done.
There. So there's the marker style right there. And then if you collect it, just watch the collection when you collect it. And actually you can move away and collect it too. Yeah. So that collection there, I like this now. If you look at what's cool about this is the collection, as we've done. If you scroll away, by the way, if you drop a marker like down near the bottom, like if you scroll down and drop a marker, just anywhere. You don't have to get to the bottom of the file. Just drop a marker near the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
And then now scroll the screen and then hit Escape to collect it. And what happens if you've got Escape as your key that's bound to it, what happens is it'll scroll it right back to where you were. So it saves the view. And I use this a lot. I use that a lot. I like the new locator beacon. I like it because it's thick and fat, and based on what I know about the biology of the eye and the way the mind works in terms of visual processing, it is the correct design for a locator beacon. So we've made minor changes that I'm very excited about with regards to the the overall look and the way, in the direction we're moving. So, we're continuing to do this. We are, by the way, we're in there seems to be a constant battle that we're in terms of the team between a large group of folks who insist that CodeRush should not get in your way, and another group of folks who insist that CodeRush should be as fast as possible, allow you to write code as quickly as possible. And what's neat about that is that the two kind of come to compromises, the two battling forces come to compromises, and so you have this setup wizard that, and actually I guess the setup wizard is going to be my answer to the question. The setup wizard is my #1 favorite new feature because it gives you discoverability if you're a new user. It helps you quickly make configuration options and changes. So that's my #1 favorite new feature, even though in itself is not a productivity feature. It's a key to being more productive.
So that's a long way to answer a short question.
Yeah, apologies. That's what happens when you tell me to talk.
Sorry.
And that's why Paul's doing the show, not me. They just have me at the end.
We love you. We love you, Mark.
All right, everybody. I just wanted to apologize again. I'm sure the guys did at the beginning, but to everyone who was not able to get in, like myself and Mark, it was a GoToWebinar issue that they obviously resolved since we're all here, but if you'd like me, if you missed half the webinar, we are recording this, so you can check our DevExpress YouTube channel. I posted the link there. We will also email all of you that registered with the link as well. All right, so we have a lot of webinars coming up in August. This Thursday, August 4th, How to Display DevExpress Reports in Client-Side Web Apps, presented by Mehul. He'll show you how to leverage your extra reports and deliver them to a client-side web application. And then next week, August 9th, Tuesday, Creating Desktop Apps for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux with DevExtreme. And August 16th, Get Notified with DevExtreme Mobile. That's again with Paul and Julian. August 18th, DevExtreme Modularity Bundles, Require.js, and Webpack. And then August 23rd, Using DevExpress MVVM Magic with WPF. And you can register for all of those webinars at devexpress.com/webinars. Sorry, losing my voice. And like I mentioned previously, today's webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Paul, Julian, and Mark. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.